The LA Clippers made it 3 wins in a row with their new starting lineup, and this one was a little bit tougher. What were the keys to getting the job done even though the Clippers didn't play their best? We saw Devin Vassell return for the Spurs, which made the game tougher. And how about the play of the point guards? Russell Westbrook, James Harden, how's that coming along? And Greg Popovich doing something that we've never seen before from an NBA coach. Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On We On a Streak Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. Your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, born and raised in LA and in my 19th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I went live directly following the conclusion of the games from Wednesday night. And Locked On Clippers is free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want you to let me know what you thought of Greg Popovich and the incident that occurred that we're going to be talking about later, and of course, the game in general. Who was your player of the game? Want to hear that. And I already know you guys are going to ignore everything I just said in the comments and just talk about the fact that I look like I'm 18 years old when I shave my beard. So I know the comment section is going to be filled by that. But, fellas, I just like the clean feel of my face without all the beard. You know what I'm saying? It just feels like clean. And I'm big on clean. And the Clippers have been playing pretty cleanly lately. 3 straight victories since they made the change to put Russell Westbrook on the bench. It has caused much better balance in terms of shot distribution, touch distribution, and rhythm for our best players, and allows James Harden to do more of what he's great at. And in this game, I thought we got good performances across the board. I thought Ivica Zubac had his 3rd straight really solid game. I thought Terrence Mann had a very similar game to Monday night, where his offense wasn't great, but his defense was exceptional. This game, he at least attacked some closeouts and got on the board. He had 6 points in this game. But overall, the Clippers, I think, there's a stat going around that they're top 5 in the league in half-court offense and half-court defense. And half-court offense, I think that number is quite sustainable, especially with James Harden, Kawhi, and Paul George starting. But defensively, I think you got to take it with a grain of salt. When you look at the teams that we've played even after the trade, the Knicks, they're not very good offensively. The Nets, their flaws on the offensive end. People question if Mikal Bridges is a number 1 on a playoff, on a team that can really go do things in the NBA playoffs. Can they make it even out of round 1? Their offense is the problem, not their defense with Claxton and all those guys. And then we played against the Grizzlies, who are very shorthanded. The Rockets, their best offensive players are Şengün and Van Vliet, so they're not necessarily world beaters offensively. And then you played against the Spurs, whose offense is pretty putrid. However, with Vassell, who was coming off the bench in this game, made it a little tougher to guard, and you saw that in this game. But I will say they're holding their own as of now. It's going to get tougher, starting with these next 3 games, New Orleans, Dallas, and Denver coming to town. But the thing about those stats are they're in the half court. And the Clippers in transition are definitely not as strong since the trade. And defensively, one of the weaknesses is transition D. And I think they've been a little susceptible to that. And the one way they make it worse is by turning the ball over. And if you're wondering why this game was so close, only a 109-102 win for the Clippers. And this is a Clipper team that was up by as many as 18 in the 4th quarter. 96-78. And only ended up winning by 7 points. And that's because they kept turning the ball over throughout the game. 11 in the first half, and it was everyone. I mean, they had 16 total in the game, but James Harden, Russell Westbrook in particular, were not really taking care of the ball. And it's funny that I mentioned those guys because it was those 2 guys that had a combined 16 assists and 0 turnovers in the last game. And in this one, they were turning the ball over. Even Kawhi his one turnover was a bad read in the pick and roll. Terrence Mann had a lob pass that was just in the air for what seemed like an eternity. And of course, an NBA player got a steal. Norman Powell, who sadly went down with an injury and didn't play the second half, a groin injury. And I'm actually going through a little groin injury myself through playing basketball. And I can tell you, it's annoying and it lingers. So hopefully that gets well soon and he can play through it soon enough. But Norm had 5 points in this game in the 14 minutes that he played. He was doing okay. Had a 4-point play, missed the free throw, but another Norman Powell getting fouled on a 3-point attempt like we saw in the last game. But I think what you really saw in this game for the Clippers that started things well is that it was a wire-to-wire win, and the defensive intensity is what got that going. And those are my 2 favorite words to use. I always look at what we're doing, and the ball pressure of Terrence Mann and Kawhi Leonard in particular to begin the game was really great in terms of tone setting. Terrence Mann was guarding Jeremy Sohan, and he was doing an incredible job in the first quarter, locking him up. And then Paul George was guarding Keldon Johnson. I thought it would be the other way around, honestly, because I thought that Keldon would be used in more scoring situations, so Terrence Mann would be better to fight over those screens. But it was actually Sohan that had the ball more, so it was a good decision to put Terrence on him. And then Kawhi, both games as a primary defender, he handled Wembanyama. Used his strength to push him away from the basket and not allow many easy shots for him. And we were switching 2 through 4 on that. So Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and Terrence Mann all took their cracks on Wemby. And we were doing a very solid job. And in the first quarter, we held the Spurs to just 14 points. So even though we were turning the ball over a decent amount, 26-14 was the score after 1 because we were shooting well and we were defending well. So as far as how we started well, Ivica Zubac, I talked about a second ago, he had his 3rd good game in a row. Well, I thought that part of that is because the Clippers got him going early. First play of the game, Kawhi Leonard hits a pocket pass, bounce pass to Zoo, who goes up with the left hand. A couple plays later, Zoo spins over his right shoulder and shoots a left-handed jump hook off the glass. And again, when you see the strides that Ivica Zubac has made when it comes to finishing with both hands, you got to reward him. You really got to reward him as a teammate. That keeps him engaged. That makes him better offensively. And I always say this about Zoo. You can tell in his body language what kind of time he's on, what kind of Zoo you're going to get. Are you going to get the Zoo that's staying down on a lot of shot contests, that's not the first to get up to rebounds, that's not blocking shots with authority, that's waiting too long to go up at the basket, that's throwing it down? Which one are you getting? And in this one, we got a guy that's throwing it down, that's blocking shots with authority, that's putting a hand up on everything, that's rebounding and looks like loose ball, I'm getting it. That's my ball. So we saw a better Zoo, and I think part of that is just empowering him with those early buckets in the beginning of the game. And speaking of somebody else that was aggressive in the beginning of the game, Kawhi Leonard. Catching the ball and going to work, whether it be in the mid-post, coming off screens, getting fed by James Harden. He was aggressive. He was looking for his shot. And I love that the change in the starting lineup, without surprise, has caused Kawhi Leonard to pick up his aggression. 2nd straight game where he shoots over 16 shots. The reason why I use 16 is because that was the shot attempt maximum that he had before the last 2 games since we got James Harden on the team. Now 2 straight games with 17 shots, and in this one he was uber efficient. In my opinion, the player of the game. 10 for 17 from the field. And what I like is, he didn't have it really going from 3 tonight, 2 for 6, or on Wednesday night, 2 for 6 from 3. But he was 8 for 11 from 2. Mid-range game on a trillion. Made all 4 of his free throws and was 10 for 17 overall in his 36 minutes to finish with 26 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals, and only had 1 turnover on a bad read in a pick-and-roll situation in the first quarter. As far as Paul George, didn't say much about him yet. I thought that in the lineup with with Russ, towards the end of that first quarter, he started getting going. He had 2 threes in the first, 2 threes in the second, and those were actually all his threes in the game. It felt like he was told by members of the coaching staff or members of the analytics department to just fire him up, because this always happens with Paul George, where he's shooting well from 3, and the team encouraged him to shoot more, let him fly, get 10 3-point attempts up a game. But there is a tendency, in my opinion, for Paul George to get too 3-point happy and take too many contested threes just because they're like, oh, well, the math will work out because you'll make 4 out of 10 of them. But I personally have a belief, and I've had it for 3 years, that the Clippers shoot a good percentage from 3 in the 2-1-3 era because they take the right ones, because they don't overdo them, because Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have a 3-level attack, and they're not predictable. So I thought Paul George took a little bit, one or two threes too many, in my opinion. If anything, I counted 3 of them that I didn't like. They're just contested, not really in rhythm, just felt unnecessary, and that we could have gotten a better shot out of it. But overall, I liked how aggressive Paul George was, especially in those minutes. He had 16 points in the first half, and he had 24 in the game to go along with 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals. He did have 2 turnovers. One of them was a live ball turnover that caused the Spurs to go on a little 5-0 run. When we went up by 17 in the first half, they cut it to 12, and Ty Lue called a timeout. So Paul George, you want him to take care of the ball, but 2 turnovers, not the worst thing in the world. I'll take the 8 rebounds and the 2 steals. He was 8 for 23, though, from the field, and 4 for 12 from 3, so just 33% from 3, and 12 of his 23 shots coming behind the arc to only 4 free throws. I'm not a huge fan of that, and I think against a better team, that might get exploited. But overall, when you get your duo to combine, your 2 best players to combine for 50 points, you'll absolutely take that. And a fun fact, this is the first time in any regular season that Kawhi and Paul George have been on the Clippers together that they've played 13 consecutive regular season games. Knocking on that wood, and I'm going to keep knocking because that is amazing to hear, that they've not only not missed one game, they're going to be tested this weekend with a back-to-back coming, but they've played 13 straight. The only time they were even close in the regular season was the first season they were together. They played 8 straight games before the stoppage, and then 4 consecutive games in the beginning of the bubble, which made 12. The most they've ever played together without interruption was 13 straight bubble playoff games. So if they suit up against New Orleans, which they should be on Friday, then they will break that. So it's a good time to be a Clipper fan right now. We have a freaking super team. And I'm sorry, but James Harden looks like a star to me. I've always thought he was a star. You know, people want to debate if Westbrook's a star. I'll leave that to you in the comments. But this is a super team. I don't care what anybody wants to say. And it's starting to come together. Does that mean they're guaranteed to win the chip? Not necessarily. But it's not time to talk about that. It's time to talk about 3 straight wins that the Clippers have gotten. 109 to 102. They're starting to build good habits. And coming up, going to be talking about the point guards, James Harden, Russell Westbrook. All right. So the Clippers winning it 109-102. They sweep the season series over the San Antonio Spurs. How great does it feel to say that? After all the years of the Spurs kicking our butts and kicking the butts of everyone in the West, now we get to sweep them. Feels so good. Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich, Tony Parker, Boris Diaw, Manu Ginobili. As, of course, the great Charles Barkley says, take that. You know, I put the caption of the first segment of this episode, 3 of them, but I meant 3 in a row, but we'll take the 3-0. I meant 3 wins in a row, but we'll take the 3-0 against the Spurs, too, this season. Let's talk about the point guard play, though. James Harden. You know, first quarter, I thought he had his good and his bad. He had a second straight game where he's put Wemby in the blender. He had a moment where he literally took 20-plus dribbles, but he did create really great space on that step back. And then he was creating some good shots for Kawhi, as I said, in the first quarter. Had a solid first. Second quarter, though, when he came back in, not so great. I thought defensively in the first quarter he was decent. Second quarter, I counted 7 points that you could count James Harden was at fault for. One of them was a bad closeout. Devin Vassell blew right by him for a bucket. Then he was guarding Devin Vassell, and it was an and one. And then there was one where Daniel Theis, and I forget who were put in the pick and roll, and Theis was expecting a rotation, and it was non-existent. But here's the thing, right? Even if Harden does rotate, unless he steals the pass that's coming into Wemby, James Harden against Wemby under the basket is not going to mean anything. Same with Russell Westbrook under the basket against Wemby. But Westbrook, the one thing I'll say about why he's better at rotations, he's quicker on it, anticipating it, and he quicker anticipating, gets there quicker, and oftentimes has hands that are ready right when the guy is catching the pass. So James Harden, I've noticed so far, his rotations underneath the basket are non-existent, really. And even if he does rotate, he's not contesting, he's not jumping, he's not taking a charge or anything of that nature. But in the third quarter, that's when you really got to see the genius of on-ball James Harden. 7 assists in the quarter. Some of them were like, for example, the first one he got to Kawhi, where Kawhi kind of spun and did most of the work. Then there were other ones where James had a behind-the-back pass to Zoo on the pick and roll. Then there was another one where he threw an outlet. Second straight game he's done this. Over the top to Kawhi Leonard. Amazing pass. Behind half court he threw it. And Kawhi dunked. And Kawhi, he was so aggressive in the third quarter. You gotta love it. He had 13 points in the third. 7 straight points on Jeremy Sohan to begin the quarter. But, part of the reason why the Clippers, after going up by 17 in the first quarter, and I gotta say, that brings me into Westbrook. I don't like how we have Russ and Harden continuously playing together, and we had several stretches in this game of it, and I'm going to talk about that. But, for example, the first one, towards the end of the first quarter, it was fine, and one thing that's going to help this is Daniel Theis. Daniel Theis being a little bit more of a spacer and also having that floater down pat more so than Zoo. Zoo is more of a jump hook guy. But Theis is very comfortable taking that one-handed push shot from like 8 to 10 feet away that you saw Russ do a lot with Steven Adams, or combined with Steven Adams for in OKC. We can have more of that with Theis. And you saw the connection between Westbrook and Theis growing in this game. 2 times in the beginning of the fourth quarter, Russ found Theis in the pick and roll. And there's a couple of times where Russ found Theis trailing on the break, and that created some offense for the Clippers as well. So part of the reason also this game was closer was that the San Antonio Spurs just played better defense. You could see part of the reason why Harden and Kawhi made bad reads in the first quarter. I was watching on TV, and if I'm not seeing where the clear read is on TV, then you better believe they're having a tough time seeing it when they're playing against that length and size and athleticism of NBA players. So the Spurs defense was just better, straight up. But, it's funny that I talk about the Russ and Harden lineup. The first couple possessions of them in together always result in, like, when Russ touches the ball, like him looking to shoot right away, catching it off the ball. Then there was a couple plays later where he hadn't really touched it. His first real touch, he comes up and just tries to attack and miss before even making a pass. So just feels like he's kind of pressing. And then the second Harden goes to the bench, Russ kind of gets to do his thing again. But the Theis, Norm, Russ lineup with Paul George in the beginning of the second quarter was doing some good things. Russ hit a mid-range. He drove and kicked a couple of times. PG was on fire, and we went up by 17. But again, the turnovers, and that's from Paul George. That's from Russell Westbrook. 2 times Russell Westbrook threw the ball ahead on a fast break, and it was just 2 passes that were just very, you really think that that's going through? Like, you really think you're going to get it in that tight of a window? Like, even the great Magic Johnson, or maybe LeBron James even, aren't going to complete those passes. Like, I think Westbrook, sometimes he just has a little bit too much confidence with his passing ability. I love the confidence, but it's like, dude, some of these passes don't have a chance of going through, really. And, yeah, that's what I have to say on that. I love the pace that he has on his passes, but sometimes he just throws them a little too fast. A little bit softer on the follow-through, Russ. A little softer on the follow-through. Follow-through is for passing too, ladies and gentlemen. But overall, I thought Russ's impact was pretty good. He missed a couple of layups going full speed. He was 3 for 8 in the game, but he had a all-around stat line. 8 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. Definitely increases our pace. The 4 turnovers, though, tough. And that's not just him. James Harden had 4 turnovers as well. Russ was 3 for 8. I like that he only shot 1 3, and it was a corner 3. I like the shot selection better. 2 for 2 from the line. So you like to see that, and he played 27 minutes. Harden had 16 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal and a block. As I said, 4 turnovers. 3 for 7 from the field, so they combined for 6 for 15, the two of them, and 2 for 4 from 3, and those threes came from Daniel Theis in the third quarter. One, Theis got an offensive rebound and kicked it out to Harden for a left wing 3. Then another one, Russ brought it down, went to the paint, drew 2, kicked to Theis. Theis made the extra pass. Harden knocked down the 3, and that was in the midst of an 18-2 run towards the end of the third quarter. So James Harden, awesome third quarter, 7 assists in it. And it was huge because the Spurs were, catching up. They ended the second quarter well because we were turning the ball over too much. We were struggling to play defense without fouling. And you started to see Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson get into the game. Then in the second half, it was a lot more Wemby. and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell started making some shots late in the game. But you got to give credit to guys like Zoo, who continue to play D all game. Even PJ Tucker, who gives you nothing offensively, and he's even starting to pass up open corner threes. His defense is still good. I'll give him that. His defense is still good. He was guarding Wemby well. Daniel Theis, I thought he was super active on the glass, but he just missed a couple of shots. Didn't shoot any threes in this game. He had a mid-range that he missed, and he just didn't shoot very well. 4 for 11 for him, but get this. 8 points, 11 rebounds, 5 of those offensive rebounds. So he had more rebounds than Zoo in 6 less minutes. And he had 4 assists. So he continues to find the open man and make good reads in the short roll. He was plus 12, 4 for 11. Overall is not great, but 8 points, 11 rebounds in 20 minutes for your backup center. You'll take that all day. Theis, baby. Clippers won the third quarter 28-22. The Spurs won the second and fourth quarters. The Clippers won the first and third. Terrence Mann, I thought, as I said, he was really, offensively, he attacked closeouts. He had 4 free throw attempts, made 2 of them, was 2 for 5 from the field, and those were in transition. 1 on a steal where he went all the way and dunked. Another one on a leak out early in the game on a really solid pass. I forget from who. Paul George had a really nice pass to Kawhi early in the game on a leak out. But Terrence played 23 minutes, 6 points, 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, and a block. Just doing a little bit of everything, and you just see how much better he makes the starting lineup. And I think Kawhi's played much better defense since Terrence has been in the starting lineup, because now Kawhi doesn't have to spend as much time guarding first and second options. And with Harden being out there, the whole objective of having a point guard that's going to have the ball in his hands like Westbrook or Harden was to have Kawhi and Paul George have less on-ball responsibility. And even more so than Russ, Harden's going to have the ball in his hands because he's a better pick-and-roll guy. So then that's even less touches for Kawhi, which will conserve his energy maybe even better. So Kawhi, 26 points, as I said. You get double figures from Harden, Kawhi, and Paul. No one else, though. But someone I want to talk about coming up that came in for Norman Powell, the Brewmaster. Amir Coffey. Going to be talking about that, the closing moments of the game, and then Greg Popovich taking the microphone from a PA announcer in the middle of a game to say... All right, so the Clippers winning this one by a score of 109-102. Clippers not doing a good enough job taking care of the ball, in my opinion, in this game. Just missed some shots. But overall, the defense was strong. And they shot 46% from the field. 32% from 3, not great. 9 for 28. 76% from the line. 22 for 29. And I got to say, Terrence Mann, 2 for 4. That's not great. But James Harden, I didn't even mention this. He shot 3 for 7 from the field and 2 for 4 from 3. And he got to the line 12 times, which is way more than anyone else on our team. Expect that to be a theme. But he made 8 of them. So he shot 66% from the line. That's pretty rare for James Harden, and don't expect that to continue. But overall, solid performance by him. All that matters is when we win, right? The starting lineup change was necessary. Everybody knew that, and you're starting to see why. But you get 16 assists again from Westbrook and Harden. You'll take that all day. 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. You'd want a little bit better than that, but in a win, I'm not going to complain too much. The guy that came in for, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned Zubac's stat line, but 12 points, 8 rebounds on 5 for 7 shooting. You'll take that all day. 26 minutes of play. But how about Amir Coffey, who got 10 minutes, came in for Norm, and was playing really well. First meaningful minutes he had gotten this season. He dove on the floor for a steal, finished in transition, attacked a closeout, and stopped and popped from around 8 feet. 4 points, 3 rebounds, a steal, 2 for 3 from the field, no turnovers, and he was a plus 8 in 10 minutes. Amir Coffey instead of PJ Tucker? Is that an option? Or is he too small? He helps our defense out, and I'm never opposed to that. And having a guy that can attack closeouts, and if he can get his three-point confidence back, he'd be a perfect piece next to Harden and Kawhi and Paul. Maybe even Russ, because Amir is actually one of our better transition players. If you go back to the 2022 season, he can finish on the break. But anyway, the Clippers win it 109-102. Ladies and gentlemen, in this game, we had an incident that, and oh, by the way, before I say that, I got to talk about part of why it was going so bad at the end. Westbrook and Harden sharing the court together. Look, when Westbrook's on the court with Zoo and Harden has the ball, the spacing's just bad. Like, the spacing's just bad, and even with Russ and Zoo and no Harden. But when Harden has the ball, that puts Russ in more off-ball situations, and that's not great. That's not great. It's not ideal. What you want with Westbrook bringing the ball up with Zoo is quick hitters to Kawhi and Paul, maybe throw it to him, maybe Westbrook sets a screen. Sometimes he'll go to the corner, but what you want is the ball in Russ's hands with Zoo out there, initiating plays. Now, the thing is, you kind of have to have Harden and Russ play some minutes, though, because if you only use Russ when Harden's not in and you have Harden playing 30 minutes, then that means Russ only gets like 18 minutes. So what's the formula there? How do you best maximize them? With Norman Powell, so you play Kawhi at the 5? That's too small. Or Terrence, and you still play Kawhi at the 5? Like, there are some issues to address in that regard, but that's food for thought for later. Let's talk about the incident. Kawhi and Pop. So in the middle of the second quarter, or I should say towards the end of the second quarter, when Kawhi was shooting a free throw, and mind you, ever since Kawhi's return to San Antonio, they've booed him because of the way he left. Obviously the quad tendinopathy started that year, and you had the conflicting medical reports between the Spurs medical staff and Kawhi's personal medical staff. You had Tony Parker coming out and saying I had a worse injury and I came back and all that, kind of questioning his integrity. And it was the first time you'd really seen the Spurs, who are this model world-class organization, questioned. And when Kawhi won the championship in Toronto after doing load management, that made the Spurs look bad for the first time in the Pop RC Buford era. Like, really look bad. That, maybe they fumbled on this. Maybe they were unreasonable. Maybe they did not trust the player's body or what the player was saying. Because it kind of was under the impression, like, people were under the impression that that was when the whole reputation started of him, like, purposely sitting out games and not caring about playing and stuff like that. Uncle Dennis. So the Spurs fans still feel that resentment, even though he won a championship and won finals MVP. So, like, for me, growing up in LA, Laker fans always said, if you win a championship for the Lakers, you're loved for life. And with all the teams that I have that have won championships, there's only one player, and it's for my favorite soccer team, that's won a championship, and I don't like him because he took weird, subtle shots. Not even subtle, like blatant shots at the team after he left about how they weren't big enough or they weren't as big of a brand, basically. But Kawhi Leonard's never said these words about the Spurs. I think they're a little too bitter. But here's the thing, right? Greg Popovich goes up and says, can we stop booing these players and just enjoy the game? We're above that. We're not like that. We have more class. And you know how the Spurs fans responded? Booing even louder. So this is going to be my piece on this. Do I think the Spurs fans are unreasonable for booing Kawhi Leonard? Yes, I do. Why do I think that? Because he won the championship for them. He was not the best player on the team by any means. He was in 2016, 2017. Absolutely. When they won the chip in 2014, he was not the best player, even though he won finals MVP. That is a fact. That is not arguable. Go back and watch the broadcasts. But he had the best series in a finals and guarded LeBron and won finals MVP for the Spurs. He is a legendary Spur. He is in the all-time Spurs in 2K. He still had one of the higher peaks of any Spur of all time in that 2016-17 season where Zaza fell on him or, landed underneath him. For them to boo a guy that's won them a championship is crazy on every touch. I mean, it's wild. But again, here's where I have to step back. I'm not a Spurs fan. I don't know what it's like. I don't know what that experience was like. There might be things that I don't know about. I didn't cover that season like that. I saw it from a diehard basketball fan's perspective that was like, oh, what's going on with Kawhi? It's different when you're a fan of that team and it's happening every single game. And to be fair, we've had some fishy situations with Kawhi and his medical diagnosis and the staff versus his staff as a Clipper. So I can understand some frustration. At the end of the day, though, I like that Pop is defending our guy because now he's our guy. And he's doing it because he won a championship. If it was not a guy that won a championship, I don't think he'd be doing that. But here's the thing. This isn't the YMCA. This isn't AYSO. This isn't the park. This isn't the Boys and Girls Club. This is not even high school sports. This is professional sports. Kawhi Leonard's getting paid $45 million. You can't police fans. It's not Greg Popovich's place. He thinks because he's the god of San Antonio, he can just tell them how to feel. No, 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 no. These people did not shake Kawhi Leonard's hand. They did not talk to him every single day like Pop did. So it's easy for Pop to say, oh, let's get over it. I can't speak for the Spurs fans. They have every right to feel how they feel and boo him if they want. And Keurig Popovich cannot tell fans that paid their hard-earned money to stop booing them or stop doing this and that. No, because a lot of those fans were probably there before Popovich was even arriving in San Antonio. A lot of them probably did. I've never been to San Antonio. I don't know. But there's got to be fans in the stands that have been there for longer than 20 years. It's normal. So that's my take on it, is I like that Pop set up for our guy. I think it showed what kind of guy Pop is, but it's not his place. This is not YMCA. This is not youth sports. He's Kawhi Leonard. He chose to leave he forced his way out of San Antonio. So they can feel however they want. Do I think it's unreasonable? Of course. But I'm a Clipper fan looking from the outside in. I gotta be level-headed here and think about what it's like for a Spurs fan. But you know what it's like for a Spurs fan? They're rebuilding, and we kicked their booties 2 times in a row. 3 in a row, baby. Let's go. And now we got New Orleans on Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say at this time to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate it with your families, whoever you celebrate it with. Appreciate this team that we have right now that has 4 future Hall of Famers on it, all of which came from Southern California, where a lot of you guys are all from, that have the best chance to win a championship for the Clippers ever in terms of sheer firepower. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George have a streak right now of games played. Things are starting to come together. And the Clippers have a freaking super team. 3 stars and then some with Westbrook. We got Russell Westbrook, a former NBA MVP, coming off our bench. Players of Russell Westbrook's caliber did not want to come to the Clippers 10 years ago. Actually, 10 years ago, we started to get good. So let's go with 15 years ago. Westbrook, I only want to come to the Clippers. James Harden. I'll sign to the Clippers for $4 million. Russell Westbrook. I would rather go to the Clippers than the Lakers and not play with LeBron. Kawhi Leonard. I'm willing to go away from Russell Westbrook and the fat contract I just got from Oklahoma because I want to go back home and play for the Clippers, Paul George. Be thankful for that. Be thankful for the 3-game winning streak. Be thankful for the sport of basketball, and be thankful for anything that brings you and other people together, including this stuff for us. I'm very thankful for this platform, for the people that Locked On that have given me this chance, and for everybody that goes behind the scenes in making Locked On Clippers possible and Dime Dropper possible and all of that. So, love you all. Stay safe. And go Clippers.